They say strength is loud, but they've never seen what silence can do. When she left, she took more than my heart. She took everything I built. My name, my business, my dignity, gone overnight. And everyone whispered, he'll never recover. I almost believed them. But there's something dangerous about a person who's lost it all. Because when you've got nothing left to lose, you stop fearing pain. I watched from the shadows as she celebrated her victory, and I waited, patiently, quietly, until it was my turn. Because revenge doesn't shout. It whispers. And when it comes, it takes everything. But before I continue, make sure you're subscribed to the Revenge by Sophia channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. We love to see how far our stories travel. The house used to feel warm, filled with her laughter, the smell of coffee, and sunlight falling across the curtains. But lately, everything had changed. Her laughter had become quiet, her eyes colder. She stayed out late, saying she had meetings, while her phone buzzed with names he didn't recognize. He tried to ask her about it once. Her answer came sharp, almost rehearsed. "You're just paranoid," she said, brushing past him. But in that silence that followed, he knew something had cracked. That night, while she slept, he stared at her profile in the dark, and for the first time, felt like he was lying beside a stranger. And somewhere deep down, he wondered, what was she hiding? It happened fast, faster than he could believe. One morning, he walked into his office and found strangers waiting. Lawyers, papers, signatures. His name, replaced on the company letterhead. His accounts frozen. She stood there beside them, wearing that same perfume he once bought her, her expression unreadable. "It's just business," she said quietly, not meeting his eyes. He wanted to scream, to ask why, but the words never came. The world around him blurred, his employees staring, whispers slicing through the air. He realized, in that single breath, that the woman he had trusted most had stolen everything. And when she walked away that day, she didn't just take his company. She took his soul. The days that followed felt endless. His phone stopped ringing. Friends who once smiled at him crossed the street to avoid him. His house felt too big, too quiet, too haunted by her memory. He drank coffee that tasted like ash, sat in rooms that echoed with ghosts of laughter. At night, he'd replay every conversation, every smile, every promise, searching for the moment she had decided to destroy him. Once, he thought he saw her car outside, headlights lingering before fading into the dark. Maybe it was just his imagination. Maybe she still wanted to see the ruins she left behind. And in that lonely silence, one question burned in his chest. How do you fight someone who already took everything from you? The first few weeks were unbearable. The house was silent, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the faint ticking of the clock, every second dragging heavier than the last. He'd wake up before dawn, sit by the window, and stare at the street where she used to park her car. The world outside kept moving, people walking, cars passing, but inside, time stood still. He tried reaching out to old friends, but their voices had changed. Some pretended not to know the details. Others cut the call short. Her story had already spread, twisted, poisoned, believable. They said he was careless, he deserved it. He stopped trying to explain. Because, what was the point? In a world built on whispers, truth was the first thing to die. And one night, as rain tapped against the glass, he realized he wasn't just alone. He was forgotten. He sold his car, then his furniture, then the last suit he'd worn to meetings, each piece of memory, stripped away. His apartment shrank until it was just one dim room with a mattress on the floor. He ate little, slept less, and spoke to no one. The silence grew heavier, pressing against his chest until it hurt to breathe. Sometimes, he'd walk through the city at midnight, past glowing windows and laughter spilling from bars, wondering if she ever thought of him. Once, he saw her face on a magazine cover beside her new partner, smiling like nothing ever happened. The photo burned into his mind like a scar. That night, he sat under a flickering streetlight and whispered to himself, "Maybe they were right. Maybe I really am weak." But somewhere in that sentence something inside him snapped. And from that crack, a dangerous calm began to form. Days turned to weeks, and the silence became something else, no longer suffocating, but clear. He stopped waiting for calls that would never come. He started writing, planning, remembering details, not out of anger but precision. Her signatures, her contacts, her patterns, every move she ever made. He realized he still had one thing left, his mind. One morning, as sunlight broke through the blinds, he looked at himself in the mirror. He barely recognized the man staring back, eyes sharp, voice steady, heart cold. He whispered, "You wanted me gone, but you should have made sure I couldn't come back." And for the first time since she left, he smiled, not with joy, but with purpose. Because silence, he learned, isn't weakness. It's preparation. It began with a notebook. A simple, torn one he found at a thrift shop, its pages smelling faintly of dust and rain. In it, he started writing everything, the names, the lies, the dates, the details of every moment she made him feel small. Each word became a weapon sharpened by memory. He stopped pitying himself and began studying, reading about business, law, even psychology. He needed to understand the kind of mind that could betray someone so cleanly. At night, under a flickering bulb, he whispered to himself, "You broke me once. Never again." The fear that had once chained him began to fade, replaced by a slow, steady fire. And in that quiet room, something dangerous began to grow, discipline. He took jobs no one else wanted, warehouse shifts, late-night cleaning, small repairs. His hands that once held contracts were now calloused, but stronger. People barely noticed him, and that's how he liked it. He listened more than he spoke, learned how people operated when they thought no one was watching. Every paycheck, no matter how small, went into a plan. He saved, studied, and plotted, building a new version of himself that no one could recognize, not even her. One evening, he passed by a cafe and saw a man from his old company. The man didn't recognize him. His beard, his posture, everything had changed. But when their eyes met, he saw fear flicker, as if some ghost of his old self still lingered. He walked away silently, smiling to himself. The weak man she destroyed was gone, and something colder had taken his place. Months later, fate, or something darker, brought him to a small workshop owned by an older man named Elias. Elias saw something in him, a quiet intelligence, a hunger most men never show. He hired him, taught him how to fix engines, negotiate deals, and read people's intentions through their silences. They worked side by side, long hours under the hum of fluorescent lights. One night, as they closed up, Elias said, "You've got eyes that have seen too much, son. Don't waste that pain, use it." That sentence stayed with him for days. Because for the first time, someone wasn't pitying him. They were preparing him. And as he walked home under the orange streetlights, wind cold against his face, he whispered, "She thought she ended my story, but I'm just writing a new chapter. And this time, she won't even see it coming." He vanished from his old life like smoke fading into the night. A new city, a new number, a new name. No one knew who he had been, and that was exactly how he wanted it. He rented a small apartment above an auto shop, the kind that smelled of oil and rain, where no one asked questions. With the help of Elias, he started something small, a repair business that grew quietly, built on honesty, precision, and word of mouth. People trusted him. They said, "He's the kind of man who remembers every detail." They didn't know those details were the same skills he once used to track every move she made. Every new client, every contact, every deal was a brick in the wall of his silent empire. And somewhere out there, she was still celebrating the victory that was already slipping away. Within 2 years, his small venture became a name people whispered with respect. Not loud, but firm. His network spread, investors, clients, suppliers, all connected by quiet loyalty. He never used his real name, but his influence began to seep into her world like smoke under a locked door. He found out she had expanded her company, greedy, ambitious, untouchable. But he also found her weakness, pride. She couldn't resist the spotlight, the applause, the illusion of control. So he started watching, not through confrontation, but through information. Old employees who remembered his kindness began talking. One by one, her secret surfaced: financial shortcuts, false reports, small lies she thought were buried. He didn't expose them, not yet. He simply collected them, stacking them like matches waiting for the right spark. And in the silence of his office, he whispered, "You won't even know it's me until it's too late." One afternoon, he attended a business conference under his new name. The hall was filled with suits, soft jazz, and the buzz of ambition. And then she walked in. Same confident stride, same perfume that once haunted his dreams. But she didn't recognize him. He stood a few feet away, watching her laugh with investors, shaking hands, glowing under the spotlight. He didn't feel hate anymore, only a quiet satisfaction. She was standing in the same world he was about to turn upside down. Later, when she passed by him, their eyes met for a brief moment. Her smile faltered, just slightly, as if some small, buried memory stirred. But he looked away, calm and unreadable. She didn't know it yet, but the man she once destroyed was standing right in front of her, reborn, stronger, untouchable. And soon, she would learn what silence can do when it finally decides to speak. Her name began to appear in conversations again. Investors whispered about her next big project, a new partnership that would change the market. And by pure coincidence, the proposal landed on his desk under his new company's alias. He smiled when he read it. She was unknowingly reaching out to him. He studied every line of her proposal, the tone, the desperation hidden behind confident words. She needed partners, funding, credibility. He had all three. It almost felt poetic. The woman who once took everything from him, now asking for help from a man she didn't recognize. He ran his fingers over her signature at the bottom of the page. The same elegant curve, the same arrogance. He didn't sign it right away. He wanted to make her wait, just long enough for the strings of her perfect life to start tightening. The first meeting was held in a sleek hotel lounge. Glass walls, low jazz, soft chatter. She arrived early, like she always did when she wanted to appear in control. He walked in later, calm, deliberate. When she saw him, her lips parted slightly, eyes narrowing with faint curiosity. "You look familiar," she said, smiling politely. He returned the smile. "People tell me that a lot." They shook hands, her touch still cold and precise. He noticed her ring, the expensive watch, the perfectly curated success she wore like armor. But her eyes, they flickered with something else. Restlessness. A faint shadow of the same fear she once made him feel. Throughout the meeting, he spoke little, listened much. She tried to dominate the conversation, to impress him, but her voice trembled when he leaned back and simply said, "I'll think about it." And as he walked away, she caught herself watching him, trying to remember where she'd seen that calm before. Days passed and she couldn't shake the feeling. She scrolled through old photos, old memories, trying to place his face. But time had changed him, sharpened him. Still, something about his eyes haunted her. Meanwhile, he continued playing his role. Polite emails, formal calls, all leading her deeper into a deal she didn't understand. He let her believe she was leading, while quietly taking control of every contract, every clause, every promise. One night, she sent him a message. "Have we met before?" He stared at it for a long time before replying. "Not like this." Her pulse quickened as she read it. Something about those words felt wrong, too heavy. She couldn't explain why, but for the first time in years she felt uneasy. And she didn't know it yet, but the man she betrayed was already standing behind the curtain, pulling the strings of her empire. She called him personally this time, her voice polished, confident, hiding the slight tremor beneath. "I've reviewed your proposal," she said. "I think we can make something big together." He listened, calm and measured, letting her speak. Every word she said reminded him of the old days, how easily she used to manipulate with charm and control. Only now, he wasn't the same man sitting across from her. He told her he was interested, but that he needed access to certain documents before he could proceed. She agreed instantly, hungry for the deal, blind to the setup. By the end of the week, she'd sent him everything: financial reports, internal memos, private contracts. The same kind of files she once used to destroy him. He read them slowly, savoring every word, every flaw. And as he closed the folder that night, a quiet smile touched his lips. The trap had already closed. The partnership became public, and the media praised it. She stood before cameras, smiling brightly, introducing him as the mysterious investor who believed in her vision. He let her take the spotlight. It made the fall look even higher. Behind the scenes, he began making small changes, harmless at first. Delayed shipments, adjusted accounts, tiny details that no one noticed except her. She began losing sleep. Her tone in meetings grew sharp. "Someone's tampering with the numbers," she whispered to her assistant. But there was no proof. Every error pointed back to her own team. He watched her crumble in slow motion, always staying just close enough to offer comfort, the mask of an ally. "Don't worry," he'd tell her softly. "I'll help you fix this." And every time she looked at him, she saw trust. What she didn't realize was that she had handed him the knife and was now begging him to help stop the bleeding. Weeks turned into months, and her empire began to fracture. Partners backed out. Investors grew suspicious. Her board questioned her leadership. She'd arrive at the office with trembling hands, forcing smiles that never reached her eyes. He'd call her often, checking in, speaking gently, his voice calm like the eye of a storm. "You need to stay strong," he'd say. "I've seen people turn against good leaders before." She trusted him completely now. She believed he was her only ally. Then one night, she invited him to dinner, desperate, tired, defeated. She confessed how she felt haunted, how she couldn't understand why everything was falling apart. "It's like someone's watching me," she whispered. He looked at her across the candlelight, eyes steady and unreadable. "Maybe," he said softly, "it's just karma catching up." Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. Something about the way he said it made her heart stop. For the first time, she began to wonder, who exactly was the man sitting across from her? Her mornings no longer began with coffee and confidence. They began with calls. Angry investors. Nervous partners. Questions she couldn't answer. The company's once smooth operations became chaos overnight. Files went missing. Payments disappeared. Projects delayed. She stood in her glass office, staring at the skyline that once symbolized power. Now it looked like a wall closing in. Her reflection in the glass looked pale, thinner, unfamiliar. She started snapping at employees, blaming them for mistakes they didn't make. They whispered behind her back, saying she'd lost her edge. Every night, she replayed the same thought: someone's doing this to me. But no one believed her. They said it was just stress. And when she finally sat down at her desk one evening, the lights flickered once, twice, and went out completely. In the darkness, she heard her own breath and the faint echo of a voice that once promised, "You'll see what silence can do." The downfall came quietly, one partner after another withdrawing without warning. She tried calling them, but every number she dialed went unanswered. Her lawyer told her that several lawsuits were being prepared. Fraud, breach of contract, false reports, all traced back to her name. She slammed her fist on the desk, eyes wild, whispering, "It's not me. Someone's behind this." Her assistant hesitated. "But all the documents have your signature." That's when her chest tightened. She grabbed the papers, her handwriting, her initials, all forged perfectly. It was impossible, unless... She thought back to the files she'd shared with him. The contracts, the passwords, the trust she'd handed over so easily. Her pulse raced as she realized, it couldn't be. Could it? And in that single moment, her carefully built empire started to feel like a house made of glass, cracking under the weight of truth. Her office was empty now. The employees she'd once commanded avoided her eyes in the hallway. Reporters waited outside the building like vultures circling for a corpse. Her calls went straight to voicemail, even from those who used to call her brilliant. The only one who still answered was him, the man she thought was her savior. He spoke gently, always calm. Don't worry, he said. Sometimes things have to fall apart before they can make sense. She didn't notice the slight amusement in his tone, not yet. That night, she returned home to find an envelope slipped under her door. No name, no message, just a single photograph, her and him, years ago, smiling in front of the company she'd stolen. Her fingers trembled as she flipped the photo over. On the back, in his handwriting, were 4 words. Do you remember now? Her vision blurred. Her knees weakened. And for the first time in years, she felt true fear, the kind that comes when the past knocks on your door and whispers, "I'm back." She called him in a panic. Her voice cracked between shallow breaths. "I need to see you. Tonight." He agreed, calm as ever, his tone unreadable. They met in the same hotel lounge where their partnership had begun, now half empty, the music faint and haunting. She looked different now, tired, shaken, stripped of the pride that once defined her. Her hair was undone, her eyes red. "Someone's destroying everything," she said. "It's like they know every move I make." He leaned forward, eyes steady on hers. "Maybe they do." Her lips trembled. "You don't understand." "Oh, I do," he interrupted quietly. "More than you think." She stared at him, confusion twisting into suspicion. There was something in his voice, something familiar. And when he finally smiled, it wasn't the smile of an investor. It was the smile of a ghost. And in that moment she knew. She couldn't move. Her throat went dry, her heart hammering in her chest. "It's you," she whispered, almost breathless. "But how?" He didn't answer right away. He just sat there, calm, composed, letting her drown in realization. "You taught me everything," he finally said. "How to lie, how to take, how to pretend." She shook her head, tears forming. "You don't understand. I did what I had to." "You ruined me," he said softly. "You made me watch everything I built burn, and then you smiled while I fell." He leaned closer, his voice low, almost kind. "But I should thank you. You showed me who I really am." Her hands trembled against the table. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. He looked at her for a long time before answering. "Nothing," he said. "I already took it back." And her heart sank because she knew exactly what he meant. She left the hotel trembling, her heels echoing against the wet pavement. The city lights blurred through her tears. Everything around her felt unreal, like the world itself had turned against her. At her office the next morning, everything was gone. Her accounts frozen. Her partners vanished. Her name dragged through every headline. She was the villain now, the liar, the fraud, the thief. And through it all, she couldn't stop hearing his voice, calm, soft, merciless. That evening, when she returned home, her phone rang one last time. His voice came through, low and steady. "Now you understand," he said. "Silence doesn't forget. It just waits." Then, the line went dead. She stood there in the dark, the sound of her own heartbeat filling the room. And somewhere outside, in the cold night air, he finally exhaled, years of pain releasing into the wind. By morning, her name was everywhere. Headlines screamed words she used to throw at others: fraud, manipulation, theft. Her photos flooded the internet, paired with stories of betrayal and greed. Investors pulled out. The company board released statements denying any ties to her actions. She tried to fight back, to explain, but no one wanted to hear her side anymore. The same world that once praised her turned its back with the same cold speed she had shown him years ago. Reporters camped outside her apartment. Old friends deleted her number. Every bridge she had built, every favor she'd traded, crumbled under the weight of her name. And in the quiet of that chaos, she realized no one had ruined her. She had built her downfall with her own hands. But still, one question kept burning. Was he done with her, or was there more to come? He watched everything unfold from a distance. No joy, no celebration. Just silence. He never once stepped into the spotlight, never claimed credit. His revenge wasn't about headlines, it was about balance. Every piece of what she'd stolen had been reclaimed under his new identity. The business, the clients, the respect. He had taken back everything quietly, piece by piece, until nothing remained that bore her mark. Elias once asked him, "Do you feel better now?" He paused before answering,
"No."
"But I feel free." That night, he drove past her office. Lights flickering, nameplate removed, empty windows staring back like hollow eyes. For a moment, he almost felt pity. Almost. But then he remembered the look in her eyes when she destroyed him, and the pity vanished like smoke. She disappeared soon after. Some said she left the city. Others said she stayed, hidden, surviving in the shadows of her former empire. He never checked. He didn't need to. One morning, he stood by the sea, the wind cutting across his face, the water stretching endlessly before him. The sun was rising, soft gold against the gray. He took out the old photograph, the one of them smiling before the betrayal. He looked at it for a long moment, then let it slip from his fingers into the waves. The tide took it, carrying it far away, until it was gone completely. He turned and walked away, leaving nothing behind but footprints that the water quickly erased. And with each step, the past grew quieter, until it was nothing more than an echo fading into peace. Months passed. The city that once swallowed him whole now felt small, almost fragile. He walked its streets unnoticed, like a ghost moving through the memories of another life. He passed by the cafe where he and she once met, the same table, the same laughter that had once felt eternal. Now it was just another sound lost to time. Inside, strangers sat where their promises used to live. He paused for a moment at the window, watching the reflection of his older, quieter self in the glass. His face had changed, wiser, harder, but calm. He realized he no longer hated her. The anger had burned itself out long ago, leaving behind something colder, but purer, understanding. Revenge hadn't fixed him. It had revealed him. He visited Elias one last time. The old man was sitting outside the shop, sunlight spilling across his workbench. "You've got that look," Elias said with a grin. "Like a man who finally slept." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I did." They talked for hours, about loss, about power, about the strange peace that comes after the storm. Elias said, "You can't rebuild the past, son. You can only build what comes next." Before leaving, he handed Elias his old notebook, the one where the revenge had begun. Its pages were filled with anger, pain, and plans now long completed. "I don't need this anymore," he said softly. As he walked away, the wind flipped the pages behind him, scattering them across the floor like fallen leaves. And with each fluttering page, another piece of his darkness drifted away. That evening, he stood by the coast again, the same spot where he'd once thrown the photograph into the sea. The sky was crimson, the waves restless, the air thick with salt and silence. He thought of her, not with hate, not even with regret, but with quiet clarity. She had been the fire that burned him, but also the forge that shaped him. Without her betrayal, he might never have found who he truly was. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply, letting the wind fill his lungs. Somewhere behind him, the world kept moving. Traffic, laughter, life. But here, in this moment, time stood still. And as the tide reached his feet, he whispered to the horizon, "Some endings don't need noise, just peace." Then he turned away, disappearing into the fading light, not as a victim, not as a villain, but as a man finally free. And the silence at last felt like home. They say revenge changes a man. Maybe it does, but not in the way they think. It doesn't fill the emptiness. It clears the noise. It doesn't bring joy. It brings understanding. She thought she broke me, but she only stripped away the parts that were weak. And in the silence that followed, I found the version of me she never could have controlled. Sometimes justice doesn't wear a badge or carry a gavel. Sometimes it walks quietly, unseen, and leaves without applause. Because true revenge isn't about making someone else fall. It's about standing tall again and never needing to look back.